Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source of Black news, Black views, and Black opinions. Today is Thursday, May 19th, and I'm Mimi Brown.
I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo, and on today's report, the House passed a bill that would boost federal resources to prevent domestic terrorism. What this means for the Department of Justice and Homeland Security. Meanwhile, one of the former Minneapolis police officers in the George Floyd murder trial could get more than 10 years knocked off his jail time. We have that story. Then the mother of a biracial boy loses her lawsuit against the Virginia school district, and she blames critical race theory.
Plus, an actor in the 50 Cent's BMF series is facing 60 years in prison, and Killer Mike is stressing the importance of men's mental health. Yes, we have all of that and so much more. This is our voice and our truth, so let's get it.
The man accused of killing 10 black people in a Buffalo grocery store appeared in court today. It's the second time since Saturday's shooting the gunman has appeared in court. Joining us to talk about the tragic death of innocent black people as well as other issues affecting the black community is civil rights attorney Lee Merritt. He has been on the forefront of fighting for the rights of African Americans around the nation for years, and he's a friend. Thank you for joining us today, Lee.
Good to be back. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I want to start, with the attack in Buffalo and just get your thoughts on the tragic events that unfolded there where 10 black people lost their lives at the hand of a racist gunman.
Yeah, it was really hard for me to speak on this. In fact, I really didn't find what I wanted to say publicly about the massacre that occurred in Buffalo because I was so brokenhearted. I learned about it early Sunday morning. I didn't know about it Saturday when it happened. And I curled up into a little ball, honestly, and hurt for our community. And that hurt sat with me for a few days. And then I started thinking about, really the context of what happened. This man committed this heinous crime as a part of a community. He was looking for soft targets. He was looking for ways to attack a community that he saw as vulnerable. And it had me begin to really consider how our community can become less vulnerable to these kind of attacks.
Mm-hmm. The FBI has been warning us for the last few years that domestic terrorism by white supremacists was on the list of threats, the high list of threats against the black people. But is enough being done by the federal government to combat the problem?
No, enough is not being done. This is the reason that me and several attorneys and families from all across the country has begun to make appeals to the United Nations. Our only line of defense is law enforcement. And our law enforcement is the deadliest, most incarceration-prone police culture in the modern world. And so right now, the FBI has told us that white supremacy elements have invaded law enforcement. I find that ironic because I feel like they created our current law enforcement system. And so we need specific plans, actions, budgets, personnel, legislation geared specifically at the threat of white domestic terrorism. We need to take it seriously as a nation in a way we just have not.
You're right. Legislation and policies got us here. Legislations and policies will definitely have to get us out. Gun safety measures and hate speech on the internet, two issues that plague the United States. And many may not know this. I know you do because you're an attorney, but hate speech is not a legal term. It's protected by the First Amendment. But should it be? I mean, we're seeing what it leads to.
Well, we've seen just in world affairs that this kind of murder and tragedy is always precipitated by rhetoric that we see coming from people like Tucker Carlson, who justifies this kind of shooting, who begins to gaslight the Black community, that it's just how we feel, and they ignore the very tangible threats, the body count as it grows from Charlottesville to what we saw happen in Charleston to this horrible shooting. And so, I think there must be accountability, not only in hate speech, but in the media who manipulates facts and begins to try to change the public narrative to disregard this open threat to the Black community.
Mm-hmm, definitely. So you're currently representing the family of Quadri Sanders, a 29-year-old unarmed Black man who was gunned down by Oklahoma police last December. I know the officers in that case have been charged with first-degree manslaughter, and I know you're pushing for murder, but can you tell us a little bit about that case?
Yeah, Mr. Sanders was shot by two officers, one Black, one white, The white officer, Higgins, was just responsible for another officer involved shooting 8 months prior, where he killed yet another unarmed Black man, a friend of Quandre Sanders. And so we see literally a serial killer within the police department continuing to rack up his body count. And now we see them charged with a manslaughter charge that to me smacks wholly inappropriate. Manslaughter is when you get in your car after drinking and you know you shouldn't drive, but you drive anyway, you behave recklessly. There's no intent behind it. Here, these officers instructed Quandre Sanders to put his hands in the air. And every time he followed their commands and put his hands over his head, he was shot. When he fell to the ground and tried to put his hands to the air again, he was shot. That's an intentional act that is foreseeable, that will lead to his death. There was nothing that he could have done to save his life. That's a murder charge to me.
Mm-hmm. You know, Lee, you've worked on several high-profile cases, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Botham Jean. I think many people are starting to feel if the police can't protect us, maybe we should protect ourselves with armed community forces in the community. You alluded to that in a recent Instagram post. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but can you explain what you meant by that?
Yeah, it's important that we begin to protect ourselves. We cannot continue to rely on, again, the deadliest police culture in the modern world that disproportionately targets violence towards Black and brown communities to be our only line of defense when this happens. And, it's always scary when Black men are talking about grabbing arms, that you automatically get the voices from the elders who have lived through centuries of lynching and terrorism to our community, who say, hey, you can't push back against white supremacy because, they have a really violent element that we don't want to see you all live out the way we've lived. But we're living it anyway. The deadliest day for the Black community since Rosewood was this past Saturday. So we're there now. And so we begin to talk about how we can defend ourselves. So militias do exist. The right to bear arms is supposed to be tied to the existence of a militia, if you read the Second Amendment. And we need to have gun competency, gun training, surveillance within our communities. We need to protect ourselves.
We definitely do. And lastly, we're running out of time, but I want to ask you, you recently tossed your hat into the political arena in your home state of Texas, running for Attorney General. Tell me what that experience was like and why you felt it was time for you to run for public office.
It's exactly what we're talking about. We know that these institutions exist, like the Texas Attorney General's office, to enforce the will of the people. It's supposed to be the people's lawyer for the state of Texas. Right now in the state of Texas, Ken Paxton is the Attorney General, and he's been operating basically at the direction of Donald Trump for a very elite group of individuals that doesn't serve the majority of Texans. And Texans' voting rights are under attack, reproductive rights are under attack, our right to access to education is under attack. And so I wanted to bring attention to that race, and that race is still ongoing. I'm no longer in it, but I have endorsed Rochelle Garza, who is a former ACU civil rights attorney, was fought to protect women's rights. And I think that's where the fight is going to be this summer, standing up to ensure bodily integrity and that women receive equal protection under the law in the state of Texas as well.
Mm-hmm. Attorney Lee Merritt, thank you for joining us. I know that you're super busy, and just on behalf of everything that you do for the Black community, we here at Fox News Black Report just want to say thank you.
Thank you all so much for having me. I look forward to coming back. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you.
In the wake of the Buffalo tragedy, the House passed a bill that would boost federal resources to prevent domestic terrorism. Under the new bill, the Justice Department, Homeland Security, and FBI would each be required to open offices specifically dedicated to investigate, prevent, and prosecute acts of domestic terrorism. It passed on party line vote. A similar bill passed in the House in 2020 before falling in the Senate. Meanwhile, this update is coming from the New York governor, Democrat Kathy Hochul. She signed 2 executive orders on Wednesday. One strengthens state gun laws and the other cracks down on social media platforms that promote extremist acts of violence.
Passage of the House bill came a day after Ben Crump called for the Buffalo massacre to be considered an act of domestic terrorism. Take a look.
We have to define it as such. We can't sugarcoat it. We can't try to explain it away, talking about mental illness. No, this was an act of domestic terrorism perpetrated by a young white supremacist.
Crump is representing the family of Ruth Whitfield, the 88-year-old woman was one of 10 people murdered by the shooter. The civil rights leader says in the wake of the shooting in Buffalo, Congress should pass the anti-black hate crime bill, just like lawmakers did last year when they passed an anti-Asian hate crime bill.
A 911 dispatcher who answered a call from a person inside the Buffalo grocery store has been put on administrative leave. Erie County officials say the operator hung up on a person asking for help during the shooting. Officials say the dispatcher asked the caller why they were whispering, then hung up the call. County officials say the worker acted inappropriately. Supervisors say they intend to fire that dispatcher. Officials say dispatchers are taught if someone is whispering on a 911 call, it's probably because they are in danger.
And a New York corrections officer has been suspended for making a joke online about the Buffalo massacre. Gregory Foster II has been suspended without pay after posting an image of the grocery store on his Facebook page. And under the image, he wrote a reference to a request for cleanup on aisles. Then he reportedly wrote, "Too soon?" At least 7 people reacted with laughing emojis before the post was removed. Screenshots of the post and the reaction have been circulating on social media. Now, some are arguing and urging the public to file complaints to state correction officials. An official statement by the Corrections Department did say that Foster's comments are despicable and stand in violation of multiple department rules. We have so much on this. So this is similar to what happened in the LAPD, I believe, when the police officers thought it was funny to joke about George Floyd's death for the Valentine's Day joke. Of course, it's despicable. This man was making $81,000 before this, so it also pays to be quiet. But I looked at the makeup of the Attica prison. And so racial disparities have plagued this prison for a very, very long time, back to 1971. So 77% black in this prison. And so 3% of the staff are black. So you think about a prison that has mainly black people, no black workers for the most part. There is no regard for black life. So honestly, was this completely wrong for him to say? Yes, but do we expect for someone of his makeup, right, to care about black life when you literally see 2,000 inmates a day? Majority of them are black, and this prison also has some of the most vicious criminals in the world. A maximum security prison. He doesn't care about black people. He literally disregards and is mean and rude to black people every single day for a living. So why would we care for him to care about our black lives?
Yeah, you know, I think about the situation, and here's a man, like you said, that's around a lot of black men that's behind bars for things that they've done wrong. So now it gives us perception, right? How he feels about black people. You have a job to do. And if you can't separate the two, then maybe you shouldn't be in that field. How are those men being treated behind bars? Because they still have laws, whether you like it or not. But to post this up, what does that say about you as a person? And the people that went along with it, those 7 people, let's check all their backgrounds. Let's check their website, see what they're doing on their internet, on their laptop, and who they're connected with as well.
Yeah, because Romeo, he reposted something that was already created. So that means someone else created this.
Started somewhere, right?
Yeah, I just kind of feel like he needs to be fired. They said that they have him on administrative leave without pay. It just doesn't matter. I think if you are guarding 200 black people, you need to be fired. You cannot take this attitude back into the prison. But it just goes to show that's what they think of us. And imagine what the prisoners are being treated like inside that prison.
That just really can't always be the go-to move to have them on administrative leave, which means I'm assuming they're still getting paid probably. So not good at all. All right, in other news, one of the former Minneapolis police officers in the George Floyd case is changing his plea. Thomas Lane is pleading guilty to state charges of aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter. In exchange for his plea, Thomas Lane's second-degree murder charge is being dismissed, and now Lane could face as little as 36 months in prison. Lane's defense attorneys say their client could have faced 12 years in prison if he were convicted of the murder charge. Lane has already been convicted in federal court of violating Floyd's civil rights. The judge would allow him to serve his sentence in federal prison to run concurrently with whatever time he gets for violating Floyd's civil rights. He'll find out the punishment soon. The 2 other officers who were there that day still face state murder charges. Their trial is due to start next month.
And political history could be made this fall in North Carolina and Kentucky if 2 African-American Senate candidates win their races. State Representative Charles Booker won the Kentucky primary on Tuesday, but he's expected to have a hard time in the general election in November when he faces incumbent Senator Rand Paul. Meanwhile, former North Carolina Supreme Court Justice Sherry Beasley won her crowded field to become North Carolina's Democratic nominee. She will now face off against Congressman Ted Budd, who received an endorsement from Donald Trump. If both win, win, they would be the first African-American senators in their state's histories.
More than a day after polls closed in the Pennsylvania House race, it's still too close to call. State Representative Summer Lee leads Steve Irwin by less than 500 votes in the 12th District House race. Now, she declared victory last night, but the race has not been officially called because, well, mail-in ballots are still being processed. Summers is a progressive Democrat who, if she wins, would represent a western Pennsylvania district that includes parts of Pittsburgh. Lee would also be the first black woman ever to serve in Congress from Pennsylvania.
Printing states are forcing election officials in Pennsylvania and Oregon to redo thousands of mail-in ballots. The work, which takes time, could delay results in some of Tuesday's primary races in Pennsylvania. The ballots had the wrong ID code on them, preventing machines from reading them. The GOP Senate race between Dr. Oz and Dave McCormick is sure to take some time to call. They are separated by 1/10 of a percentage point.
And Governor Ron DeSantis signing a bill this week making protests outside of private residence illegal. Sorry, soulmates. DeSantis says the move is in response to the recent abortion rights protests outside the Supreme Court justice's home. But protesters can only be arrested after ignoring an officer's order to disperse. Critics say it's ironic that a governor that claims to fight for free speech is trying to restrict it.
A mother is trying to sue TikTok. She is suing TikTok after her 10-year-old daughter died during the blackout challenge. The mother says the challenge did go viral on the social media outlet. In the lawsuit, Twyna Anderson, she alleges that her daughter fell victim to TikTok's predatory and manipulative algorithm back in December. Anderson says she found her daughter passed out, and she says that she tried to revive her, but the child died at the hospital. The challenge, it dares social media users to try to choke themselves until they pass out. TikTok officials deny the challenge ever trended on its app, and company officials, they say that they sent sympathies to the child's family.
The white mother of a biracial child says critical race theory is ruining her child. The woman lost her lawsuit against a Virginia school district. Melissa Riley, who is the mother of a half-black 8th grade boy, says critical race theory is being taught in her son's school. She says it has changed her son for the worse.
What kind of racial issues is he having?
Well, he's seen himself just as a black man. He's seen things that don't go his way as racism, and he's finding safety in numbers now.
So when you're saying he gets a bad grade at school, he blames racism, or a girl rejects him on a date, racism, are those the kind of things you're seeing?
Yes, I asked him to clean the house, racism, yes.
Riley and her son were among plaintiffs in a lawsuit against the Charlottesville School District. The suit alleged the school's anti-racism policy violates the Virginia Constitution, equal protection, and free speech clauses. The suit was thrown out of court last month by Riley, and the group representing her says they will appeal the ruling. So she went on to say her son said that he's a black child and feel like things aren't treated fair when it comes his way. That sounds about right, to be honest. But I did a little research in here, and now this is the class that was called, let me pull this up. They said the curriculum was called Courageous Conversations About Race, CCAR, and it started last year around May or June. But he's an 8th grade child. These conversations are to bring about having conversations at home with your parents. So part of me wants to blame the parents, and there's conversations you could be having with your son, helping him understand why this conversation is not happening, maybe why you're even feeling that way. But for it to go to this extent, I don't agree with
You know, Romeo, she went on national television and she embarrassed her 13-year-old son. I mean, he is in 8th grade, so you can't, this story is, you know, it's on social media. Even if he's not on social media, his friends have heard about it. And here she is discrediting his feelings as a black man, no matter what. Maybe, because she said that she's a single mother, the father is black, so maybe he didn't know where to put those feelings. He didn't know what to do with them. And when he heard this in class, he was like, aha, I'm not crazy. You know, I'm having these feelings. I'm realizing that feeling of you treating me that way the other day, or this, I didn't get it. It didn't go my way. Well, that was an act of racism. It was literally something that validated his feelings. And instead of that, this mother went on national television and invalidated all of his feelings and what he was saying. And so lastly, she strikes me as one of those people who say, I don't see color. And when you say I don't see color, then you don't see me. And so she doesn't even see her own son.
Yeah. I wonder what the dad has to say about this. Demi, I know you ready.
Listen. So first off, she's a single mom, so we don't know where the black father is, right?
Okay.
So this white lady went on a white TV platform, and she thought that she was going to get, I don't know, sympathy from who with this statement at all. This is why black women feel the way that we feel about white women who get with black men, because everybody, you know, the statement, everybody wants to be black until it's time to be black. So you have a black son here because your son is half black, so he's considered black too, you know, in different communities. So you have a black son here. Mimi, great point about you you invalidated his feelings, but you go on national television and you speak as if you're a white woman in a white world, not a white woman in a world that has black people that are dying right now. And it's just, I'm just infuriated. I can't even get my thoughts together, guys, because I'm so infuriated because so many black women feel the way that we feel about white women who get with black men for this very reason. Because you don't have the black man in the household clearly to teach him how to be a black man in America. And so you can't go on TV speaking as a white woman when you have a black child. You have to go on TV speaking as a white, as if you care about the black community. She disinvalidated so many white allies that we have that have half black children.
Absolutely. That's exactly what she did. And, you know, it's almost as if, you know, we always say black is beautiful. So she clearly doesn't think that. She said that her son looks Hawaiian and he's beautiful. You know, so there's a lot of things happening there.
Maybe she was trying to get accepted by someone else, maybe. You know what I'm saying? I don't know who, but we'll keep you posted on that story.
Sure will.